All right. So as we are going through some revisions, as we are preparing for ourselves for the September exams, the test that you're going to have, we are going to consider one of the question papers that we are going to work on, which is a common test of September 2022. This was 75 marks, 1.5 hours. So that is the paper that we are going to go through. Make sure that you read your instructions, understand your instructions. So the most important part is that you are supposed to show clearly all calculations, the diagrams, the graphs, etc. Whatever that you are given, you are supposed to have everything indicated clearly. And also in this question paper, if necessary, round off answers to 2 decimal places unless stated otherwise. They might give us another instructions, and also diagrams are not necessarily drawn to scale. So meaning to say, whenever you're answering your questions, do not measure the diagrams. The diagrams, they are not necessarily drawn to scale. They are just there. It's just a diagram. Do not measure any dimension that you're given there. So we're going to quickly rush through our questions so that we see how we're supposed to attempt these typical questions. If you check properly, the first part, which is question number 1, we are given a condition that you are supposed to consider here, that Taylor decides to purchase a sound system which cost 7,999 Rand. So that is Taylor's sound system. It is costing what? 7,999 on a hire purchase agreement. So this is being taken on a hire purchase agreement. And what are the conditions? 1.11, we're given if Taylor pays 11% deposit, calculate the balance after Taylor has paid the deposit. Take note, what are you calculating? The balance. So the first thing is for us to know what was Taylor's balance in the deposit first in that case. What was her deposit? They can even ask you a question just to calculate a deposit, not the balance, but the deposit. So you must know that. So deposit is simply the percentage that you are given there of 11% times the amount that you're given. That's 1.11. So the first thing, let's calculate the deposit, which is 11%. It was already paid, this one. 11% was paid. So it's 11 out of what? 100. Remember to remove percentage, divide by 100, then you multiply to the amount of the sound system, which is what? 7,999. So this was going to give us, that is going to be 879.89. If you multiply properly, you've got what? Your deposit. Out of this amount, this is what was deposited. So what is remaining? That is our balance, the remaining from the total that we have. From the total. So that is our balance. So in this case, our balance is simply going to be the difference. So you subtract the 7,999 minus the deposit that we have of 879.89. That is going to give us a balance which was going to be 7,119.11 as your balance, the remaining amount to be paid. The balance means the remaining amount to be paid out of the 7,999. She only managed to pay this 879.89. So this is what is remaining. So the question now on 1.12, we are now given a condition that the store charges, take note, 20% interest per year, meaning to say per annum. There is a 20% interest with a loan payable over 4 years. Why are they talking about the loan? The balance that we are given becomes the loan that has to be paid. But now there is what? An interest. Remember, that's the condition. Always, if you take a loan, you are given an interest. So it is like the balance that it is no longer going to be exactly this amount to be paid. It is going to be paid with an interest. So meaning to say, this becomes our loan that is to be payable over 4 years with an interest of 20%. So the question was, calculate the total amount that he will pay. He will have to pay. All right, this is a guy. He will have to pay back. The amount you have to pay back. Okay, this is it. So this is what you're going to do. In this case, what is it that you have to consider is the payable, how to pay this amount. How is it going to be paid? Is it going to be paid under simple interest, or is it going to be paid under compound interest? So we are not given any compounding to say it is having 20% compound. No, it is just 20% interest per year. So that one, it's simply a simple interest that you have to consider in this case. So here we are going to work with a simple interest. That's a simple interest that you're given there. You are not given anything about compound. This pay over a year, this and that. Once you are given something like being compounded, let me check. You've got something like that so that we can see the difference in an exam. All right. So it's unfortunate that we do not have something. All right. If you check here, 1.3, this statement. If the interest rate was 8.25 per annum, they did not end there. Then they are saying compounded annual. Compounded annual. It means you are now having what? Compound interest. This one, you answer it using what? The compound interest formula. Once there's a statement compounded annually, compounded monthly, compounded as long as this statement compounded this. But there, we do not have, is just 20% interest per year, just like that. It ended there. So this is a simple interest. All right. So remember your formula. It is very, very important for you to realize that. So that is 1.12. So remember the formula for the amount from simple interest is given by the principal into 1 plus IN, which is interest times the number of years. Where in this case, P is the balance that we had, which is our loan. So meaning to say, what is going to be the amount after 4 years? So the principal, that is our balance of 7,119,11 into, that's 1 plus the interest rate that we are given, that's 20%. Over how many years? Over 4 years. So meaning to say 20% is 20 over 100, which is going to give us 0.2. So this will give us 0.2 times N, which is the number of years over 4 years, the 4 years that we are given. That is where it plays a role. So that was going to give us the amount he's supposed to pay after 4 years with an interest. There's an interest now. So that's it. So you simplify, if you to simplify this whole part, you multiply this, you get 0.8 to 8 to 1. That was going to give us 1.8. Then multiply to this value. You were going to obtain something like that was going to be 128. Okay, 12,000. Actually, it was going to be 12,814.40. Remember, if you're dealing with money, supposed to have 2 digits after the comma, 2 decimal places after the comma. Always supposed to have 2 decimal places. So under a hire purchase, it is always a condition that you're going to pay more. Look what's happening in this case. We're in the actual sales. Let's just take about the first condition. It was supposed to be 7,919, which is something like 8,000, approximately 8,000. But look what is to be paid, 12,840. So always under a hire purchase, the amount is going to be more than. Remember, he even paid a deposit, this one. It is already paid, plus this balance again. So you see that whenever you buy something under a hire purchase, you are going to pay more amount than to buy an item on cash price. So you have to understand that in your comparisons. That's why you're learning all this. Okay, let's move on to another question. 1.13. We are given that Taylor is also required to pay a monthly insurance of 30 Rand and an administration fee of 12 Rand. How much will Taylor's monthly repayments be? Monthly repayments. Monthly. Remember? Okay, this is what we have. Let's just start with this one. Monthly is supposed to have an insurance of 30 Rand and an administration fee of 12. So meaning to say from this statement alone, this part is going to be additional. It's an additional information that we are given, which is going to be 30 plus what? 30 plus 12, which is going to be 42. So there we are going to have what? 42 Rand on them. Additional on something that is to be added from what exactly is supposed to pay monthly. What exactly is this supposed to be paying monthly? This amount here. Remember, after that balance that we had here, we are now having an interest of the amount to be repaid over 4 years. Remember, it was over 4 years we are given there. It was to be repaid over 4 years. So if you are paying over 4 years monthly, how much is he going to pay monthly from this amount? Okay? For 4 years, how much is he going to pay monthly? So the question is, in a year, how many months do we have? 12 months. So if in a year, we've got 12 months, what about in 4 years? We're going to multiply 12 by 4, which is going to give us 48 months. In 4 years, we have got 48 months. 4 times 12. A year, 12 months, but there are 4 years. So meaning to say, we were going to divide the amount to be paid. This is the amount to be paid, remember? This amount to be paid over the number of months. It's now monthly. Over the number of months, or main months, 48 months, which is 4 times 12. So that was going to be 48. So meaning to say, in a month, is supposed to pay 308.97 Rand. In a month, is supposed to pay this amount. But remember that with this additional information that we are given, that we calculated here for this amount of insurance of 30 Rand in administration. Remember, we said we're going to have what? 42 as an additional to what he is supposed to pay monthly. So therefore, the total monthly repayable will be equal to the monthly that he is supposed to pay from that amount that is supposed to pay, which is 308.97 plus what? The additional amount to be paid also in a monthly, that insurance and administration. So you're going to add that additional part of 42 to this amount. So that is the condition. So in this case, we are going to add 42 rand. So meaning to say at the end, what is going to be the total in that case. All right. So in this case, we have already, sorry for this here, I've already calculated this here combined together. Actually seeing that there, I'm giving you the answer of this being combined together. It was supposed to be 12814.4 divided by what? 48. See this thing of working aside, then you also, when on another preparation, you do another thing. It was supposed to be 266 here. 266 point what? 0.97, something like that. Then you add the 42. So it was supposed to be 266.97. Let's correct this one. So the 266.97 plus 42, it was going to give us 308.97. Okay, so this is the total that we are having. So in that case, the 308.97, seeing that I was taking just the answer that I used on my preparations, it was supposed to be, if you wanted to have it direct, you're just gonna have it like this. The monthly, which is 12,814.40 divided by what? Divided by 48 plus the 42, which is the additional. So you have to add the 42 rand, which is your additional amount. So this was the one that when you divide this part, add the 42, you were going to obtain the 308 as it is 308.97. All right, so let us just correct also that part. So this is the monthly from the amount, and the additional of 42, which is of the insurance and that administration, is something that was added on that part. All right, so I want us to just correct that part, then we move on. Then let us consider 1.2. We are given, let us see this information here. This is 2 marks. So on a trip to Florida, Akwande booked into a hotel for 4 nights. So take note, we have got 4 nights in that case. The exchange rate at that time was $1 as to 16.77 rand for each dollar. And the cost per night was $450. Just a night, $450. How much did she spend in, take note, in what? In rands for the 4 nights. Okay, so there we've got a lot of things to consider. One, the amount that was to be spent for the 4 nights, because it is being charged in what? It is charged in dollars. This amount is charged in dollars. So let's just calculate that total in dollars as it is. For 4 nights that we are given, how much was going to be paid? So guys, this is a simple arithmetic that we are given here. A night, it's 451. One, it's 450. So if there are 4, you are paying, one night is 450, another 450, another one 450, another one 450. 4 of them. So you simply multiply. So the amount for the 4 nights is going to be the amount per each night, which is 450 times the number of nights, which is what? Which is 4. So by multiplying by the number of nights, we are going to have the total in dollars, which is 1,800. So this person was going to pay $1,800 for the 4 nights. But is it what we are being asked here? No. The question is, How much did she spend in, that is the most important part, in rands. So you have to convert now this using the rate that you are given. Each dollar is equal to 16.77 each. So you can use your simple arithmetic to say if for each dollar we have got 16.77 rand, what about for 18,000 for this $1,800? How much rand are you going to have? So it's simply going to be a multiplication. This multiplies this multiplies. So it's gonna be 1,800. So meaning to say, in that case, we are going to obtain 1,800. So that is for 4 nights. In what? In rands. It is going to be simply the product. Since a dollar is 16, so it's a product, guys. What if you have 1,800? For each one is the, what about if there are 1,800 you multiply? So that's 16.77. So you're going to have to multiply 16.77 times 1,800. Whatever that you're going to obtain, what? In rand. And that was going to be 30,186 rand for 4 nights. They were going, she was going to spend 30,186 rand. So this question, there are two things to be considered. One, the amount for the 4 nights and the conversion. So it was either you were going to convert first this amount that we are given to rands. Then you convert now, you multiply by the number of nights after. It's up to you. So many ways that you could have answered this question, how you're answering your question. All right, this one, it had 3 marks on 1.3. We are given here, I think that was the one that I was talking about of the compound interest. After 7 years, an investment increased to, and then say I've got amount after 4 years, after 7 years, if the interest rate was 8.25 per annum, compounded annually. So meaning to say, if it is compounded annually, there is no effect on this interest. It was supposed to be the interest you convert. Remember, you divide by 100. Your interest, you divide by 100. So if you divide by 100, it was going to be 0.0825. Then you are supposed to divide by the compounding made here. Annually, they're talking about the whole year. So you're simply going to divide by what? By 1, which does not have an effect. If it is compounded monthly, you have to divide by 12. So this one is just annual as it is. So meaning to say this was going to remain as it is, as your interest are, as it is, with no effect, but the formula is not going to change. The formula is still for compound. You must know that. The formula is still for compound. Remember, for compound, interest is now the amount is equal to principal into 1 plus I to the exponent of n. So the question is, we are supposed to calculate the amount initially invested, which is this P. So we can simply find P by dividing by the bracket of 1 plus I to the exponent of n. This is a product. So you can simply divide by this bracket. By dividing by this bracket, this can cancel. We make P the subject of the formula, meaning to say the formula that we can use for the principal can be given as P is equal to the amount over what? 1 plus I to the exponent of n. This is now representing the principal. Initially, what are you having? That's the principal amount. A is the one that we are now having increased to this amount. This is what you are now having. So there we've got 95,000. Just gonna substitute as it is. It was 95,798.35. Everything over what? 1 plus the interest rate. Remember, our interest rate after dividing by 100, it gave us this decimal 0.0825. So that's 0.0825 to the exponent of n, the number of years. How many years? 4 after 7 years. It's an investment to be made after 7 years. Like, what are we going? What we had, that amount, it was obtained after 7 years. So that's it, guys. It's you and your calculator. Make sure that you use your calculator properly. This was going to give us 55,000. In that case, 55,000, right? Initially, this was the amount that was deposited. Initially. All right. Let's check another question. 1.4, we are given that Linda deposits 4,500 into a savings account. Okay, let's see what is being given here. So she had to deposit 4,500 into a savings account. At the end of 4 years, she adds a further amount of 2,500 into the savings account. At the end of 4 years. Okay. The interest paid on the savings is 7.5% per annum. Compounded annually. We are back. Compounded annually. Compound interest again. But like I said, compounded annually does not affect. You just write your interest as it is. But that's the compound interest formula that you're going to use. So the question on 1.41 was to calculate how much money is in the account at the end of 4 years, immediately after the second. Take note, it is not ending there. Immediately after the second deposit. So meaning to say, the amount that we are going to have immediately after the deposit, after these 4 years, it is going to be the normal amount from the compound interest plus what? The second deposit. Plus the second deposit. You are going to add the deposit immediately after the second deposit. So we need the amount first. Then we add. So remember, our amount is taken from what? Our compound interest P plus 1 into 1 plus I to the exponent of n. So this is the amount that we were supposed to actually have. Then we have to add the deposit. All right, so let's calculate the amount. The principal, remember, amount deposited, that's our principal in this case, which is 4,500 into 1 plus the interest, which is 7.5%. Remember, we have to divide this by 100, which was going to give us 0.075 to the exponent of n. How many years? That are we talking about? After, oh, that is at the end of 4 years, after 4 years. So meaning to say the number of years was going to be 4 within this period. So using your compound interest formula, you are going to obtain an amount of 6,009.61. But what we need is this second deposit to be added, because they are saying after the second deposit, immediately. So meaning to say immediately, the total amount is going to be the amount plus the deposit, which is 6,009.61 plus the second deposit that was given in this case, that is the second deposit that she adds a further amount of what? 2,500. So this is the further amount added of 2,500. So this will give us the total amount in this case, which was going to be 8,509.61. Just like that. So this is after 4 years with a deposit. This is the amount that we are having after 4 years. Okay. Now the question is, calculate how much there will be available in the savings account 10 years after the first deposit. 10 years after. After the first deposit of 4,500, remember, something happened. For the 4 years, she added a further amount of what? 2,500. So meaning to say, within the 10 years that we are given there, within the 10 years that we are given, already we have calculated this up to the end of 4 years. So we have covered 4 years here. This is the amount that is now available as the initial amount in the bank for the remaining years out of what? Out of the 10 years that we have there. Meaning to say how many years are remaining. So our N is going to be 10 minus 4, which is 6 years. So for these 6 years that are remaining, because 4 years, he has already invested, the amount is already increased within the 4 years with an interest. So meaning to say, this is now the new amount that we are going to have for the remaining 6 years. So remember, we are under a compound interest. So you're going to have amount is equal to A plus A into 1 plus I to the exponent of N. So the amount that we had up to the 4 years, at the end of 4 years, is now our principal. This is like the amount that you are depositing into the bank now. You take it like that as the principal. Remember, it's already has its interest. So it's like something new. It's like you are starting to invest for the remaining 6 years. So this, you have to treat it also as your principal now, the amount that you are having for the first 4 years that you invested. So that was going to be 8,509.61 into 1 plus the interest rate. Is it going to change? No. The interest rate of this investment is still the same. That's 0.075. The number of years now, remember we are remaining with how many years? With the 6 years. To increase this amount in the remaining 6 years. But this amount is what? For the first 4 years. Plus this one for the remaining 6. So meaning to say we now have the amount of for the rest, I mean for the 10 years in actual sense. So this was going to be 13,132.89. After 10 years, this is what we're going to have. This is after 10 years. Remember, you are investing the amount that was already having interest for the first 4 years. So we have already consumed 4 years here, this one. Then the remaining 6 years now. So meaning say the 4 years and the 6 years together, that is for the 10 years. So you have to be careful when it is like this. Because why is it like this? Because there is an additional amount that was added to the what? To the investment. That is why it is like that, because she added further amount. If it was not like that, you were going to calculate for the 10 years as it is direct from the initial amount, but it's no longer like that, because within these 10 years, she adds a further amount of 2,500 after the first 4 years. She can also do the same thing. After some years, she adds another amount. It means you have to start again. When a certain amount is being added, you must consider that. Then the interest is affected with that second deposit being involved. All right, so that was your financial mathematics, guys. As you can see, you need to go through a lot of questions to understand how are they going to ask these typical questions on your finance. Also, probability, another subject that you need also to go through a lot of questions, revise as much questions so that you actually understand this the more you do your question papers. So question 2, you're given a bag contains yellow and blue marbles of equal size. The probability that a marble chosen at random will be yellow is 1/6. So the probability to pick a yellow marble is 1/6. So the question on 2.11, if it is given that, if, what does if mean? It's an assumption that we have. We are assuming that there are 102 marbles in the bag. How many of them will be blue? If there are 102 marbles, all of them the total. So this is what you can do. Since you're given the probability of yellow, you can calculate the yellow marbles from there because you have its probability. So what will be the number of the yellow marbles? That's simply 1/6 times the total of the marbles that you are given, which is 102. Times the total. That was going to give us 17. So we have got 17 yellow marbles from this condition. So how many will be blue if they are 17? So meaning to say the blue marbles is going to be simply the total number of marbles, which is 102 minus the yellow one. So remember, this is our total minus what? Minus yellow. So this will give us, because there are only two, yellow and blue. So if we remove yellow from the total, we remain with what? We remain with the blue. And that was going to be 85. So we've got 85 blue marbles. Okay, another way that we could have answered this same question is, since we are given the probability of yellow, these are just two colors that we have, yellow and blue. And we do understand that the probability of these two, because there are only two that we have. So it means the probability of yellow plus the probability of blue is supposed to give us a 1. Remember, probability adds up to 1. So we can have the probability of what? Of picking a blue, which is simply 1 minus that of picking what? A yellow. So we simply need to subtract this 1 minus 1/6 from your calculator. That is 5/6. This is the probability of picking a blue marble. They can ask you that. The probability on itself, they can even ask you from this, without being given this, what is the probability of picking a blue? So it's 1 minus this one. They are just 2. So if blue, the chances of picking a blue marble is 5/6. So how many are blue? So it means the blue is simply its probability times the total number of marbles, which is 102. That was going to give us 85 blue marbles. Still, you're going to have the same thing. All right. That is how you could have also attempted this question. Let's move on to another part of our question. So if it's an assumption, like I said, you are assuming that 2.12, if again, this one is an assumption again. This one is no longer applicable. Forget about this statement that we had before. It's no longer part of this because you are now assuming to say if there are 26 yellow marbles in the bag, how many of them will be blue? We are now told the number to say if they are 26. So we can find the total first. Remember how we used this total of 106. We said 1 over 6 times 102 to obtain the yellow marbles that we got last time, which was a 17. Remember how we got it? It was 1 over 6 times the total. But this time, it just changed. But the concept is not going to change. It means the probability of 1 over 6 times the total, which this time we do not know. And the total is not going to be 102 because that was on it on this question. Now it's another question. So we do not know the total here. This time, we do not know the total. But what we understand is that if we multiply 1 over 6, the probability of yellow, to the total, we must get the number of what? The yellow, or just like what we had getting a 70. But this time we are not here, we are here. So we must get what? 26 yellow balls. Just like what we had. 1 over 6 times 102 gives us 17. The probability of yellow times the total in this case is giving us the yellow marbles. The probability of yellow times the total is giving us the yellow marbles. So what is X, which is our total? What is X? So it's just a simple equation, guys. 1 over 6 times X. How do you remove this? 1 over 6 here. You can divide by 1 over 6, which is fine. This by 1 over 6, this by 1 over 6. You obtain your X. Or what can you do? Cross multiply. Instead of dividing like that, you can simply remove both. This is 1 over 6. You want to remove this 6 in the denominator. So multiply by it. Multiply by 6 here. Multiply by 6 here. So this was going to cancel. So it's just 1 times X, which is X. So X is equal to 26 times 6. Remember, what are you calculating? The total. So 26 times 6 was going to give us 156. This is the total number of marbles. This time, it's no longer 102. This was on another condition. But the concept is still the same that we are using. The concept is still the same. So we are saying in this case, for these 26 yellow marbles in the bag, and we are saying there's a total of 156. Therefore, how many will be blue? Our question was asking us, how many will be blue? We need the blue one. So therefore, the blue marbles is going to be the total of 156 minus what? Minus the yellow that we are given, which is 26. The total minus the yellow, because we need to find how many are blue. How many will be blue? And that was going to give us 130 marbles. So it means we have got 130 blue marbles. Where if they are guys, it's if there that is controlling. If it's an assumption that you're making. Here we made another assumption. Here it's another assumption. So on this assumption, you do not have the total. You must find the total. From the probability is not changing of finding yellow is still this one. That is the case. So you must understand the concept that you are given, or you can even use proportion to say if 1 over 6 is 26, what about 5 over 6? You can use a proportion because you have this probability. Another way that you could have just used here is to apply what? Proportion. From simple proportion, what can happen? Because we have the probability there. The probability of yellow, which is 1 over 6. We have got its answer. There are 26, which are yellow. So 1 over 6, if it is equal to 26, what about the probability of blue? Remember, I talked about this to say if the probability of yellow is 1 over 6, And the probability of blue is going to be 1 minus that one of yellow, which is 1 over 6. So it must give you 5 over 6. So we have the probability of blue, this one, which is 5 over 6. So if the probability of blue is 5 over 6, so therefore how many blue marbles do we have? It's just a simple proportion, just like what we had before. If 1 over 6 is equal to this, what about this one? It is equal to what? So you can even use x. Some of us use x, then we do like the cross multiplication. 1 over 6x is equal to 5 over 6 times what? Times 26. Then you have to calculate the x. So in order for us to calculate x, we're going to remove this 6 here, multiply by 6 so that this can cancel. So x will be equal to this one, 5 over 6 times this. Okay, so that is simply what we're going to have. And if you multiply properly, you are going to obtain 130. This time, x here is representing the number of the blue. Remember, this is probability of blue. These are blue marbles. This is the probability of yellow. These are yellow marbles. So there are 26 which are yellow. So how many are blue? So it was a simple proportion type of a question. If, guys, it's an assumption that you are assuming that this is a condition that you are using. So with that condition, what will be your answer? You remove all the idea that you understand, you put that into consideration to say, what are they saying according to the question? Complete the statement. The following, 2.21, for exhaustive events, the probability of A or B is what? If two events are to be exhaustive, we know that the probability of A or B is supposed to be completely 1. What is in A and what is in B must give us a 1. For mutually exclusive events, the probability of A and B is what? We do understand that's a 0 there. There is nothing on the intersection if two events are mutually exclusive. There is no intersection. There is nothing on the intersection. All right. 2.3, given that A and B are inclusive events, being inclusive, it means they are not mutually exclusive. So this time, the probability of A and B is not equal to 0. It is equal to a certain value, which is not 0 because they are not part of the, it's this part of the mutually exclusive when the probability of A and B is equal to 0. So these ones, they are not. So meaning say the probability of A and B must be equal to a certain number, not a 0. No. So that is why they're asking us now to say, calculate that probability of A and B, because they know this time you can obtain it. And that is 3 marks for that. So for this one, you can simply, that's 2.3, you can simply use the basic laws of our sets from the probability. Which part of our sets am I talking about there? That the probability of A or B in a normal sense, whether it's mutually exclusive, whether it's what, we do understand it was taken from the probability of A plus the probability of B minus that of A and B. A and B. It is only that when we are given that they are mutually exclusive, when we say A and B is a 0, so you end up not having this part because that's a 0 there. So you end up having these equated. If it was for mutually exclusive, you're going to have your formula like, but the original formula, guys, is supposed to be like this. Whether it's for mutually exclusive or what, the original formula is supposed to be like, even if you use like this, then you substitute PA and B, it's what? It's a 0. Still, you're going to have same answers. But this time, guys, it's not a 0 because you need to calculate this one because we are saying they are inclusive events. Here, I'm just giving you a scenario of what could have happened if we are using this of 2.22. But in this case, for 2.3, it's not mutually exclusive. There is It's not a mutually exclusive. This is inclusive events. So there is something there on the intersection. So it's either you can substitute this or you can just make it this one the subject. How can we make this the subject? Because other textbook, they have this formula in terms of PA and B, where they take it this side and they take PA or B this side. So it means our formula for the probability of A and B, it is simply going to be PA, probability of A, plus the probability of B. Then by taking this A or B to the other hand, it becomes a negative there. So it's P, A, or B. So it's either you are going to use your formula like this, you substitute it there. As you can substitute because you have got these ones, you calculate this. Or you manipulate to make this the subject, still up to you. So if you have manipulated now to make your PA and B the subject like this, you need to simply substitute your values now, which is the probability of what is in A. What exactly is in A? 0.6. So that's 0.6. The probability of everything in A, 0.6 plus that of what is in B, which is 0.4, minus that of A or B together, A or B, which is what? 0.9. So you must subtract the 0.9. So this was going to give us 1 minus 0.9, which is 0.1. So this is the probability of A and B. So that is, you can make it the subject just like that, or you can substitute direct, guys. I'm not saying if you substitute here on this formula, it will be wrong. No, you obtain same values. You could have just substituted here because you have your values, all of them. PA or B, we have it. PA or B, that's 0.9, is equal to PA, which is 0.6 plus PB, which is 0.4, minus what? Minus the probability of A and B. Then you have to calculate this now. So you can combine this. 0.9 is equal to 0.6 plus 0.4. That's a 1 minus the probability of A and B. You want to calculate this, so you have to take, since it is carrying a negative, take it to the other hand of the equation so that it becomes a positive. So the probability of A and B was simply going to be equal to 1. We take the 0.9 this side, it becomes a minus 0.9. So that was it, which is 0.1. Just like that. Or you can even, if you do not want to transpose it this way, you can transpose the 1 this side. It becomes a negative there. So it will be 0.9 minus 1, which is minus 0.1, is equal to minus PA and B. Then we want to remove the negative, divide by the negative. So you've got PA and B, which is equal to this. Guys, let us revise as much questions as we can. Let's move on to another one. 2.4. 205 grade 10 students. You have a choice of 2 sports. Soccer, which is S, and hockey, which is H. So this is the information that you're given. 86 students play soccer, this 64, they play hockey 63. Neither of the two, meaning to say they do not play these 2 sports. Let the number of students that play both, take note, both soccer and hockey be X. From this information, draw a Venn diagram to represent the above information. All right, this is what we have, guys. It's going to be, since there's an intersection and there are 2 elements to be considered in this, like S and H. So this one is not going to be that difficult. We're just going to have our 2 sets here, 2.4. Okay, let me just even sketch it here, guys, where we see our information. So we're just going to have our sample space, in this case, having 2 sets, soccer and the hockey intersecting. Why are they intersecting like this? Because we are given that There are those who take both soccer and hockey. There are those who take both. So those ones who take both will be indicated or represented with X for both. Okay. Let's get back to our information first. There are 200 of them. There are 205. This is just the sample space of it. Like everything, there's 205. Do not worry about that. But we are given that 86 students play soccer. This is the set of soccer, this one. Let me put it this way so that you understand me here. This is the set of soccer, this one. This set is the set of soccer. This part that I'm putting in red here. It represents those who are taking soccer. This whole part here. But are we seeing that inside this part here, which is red, are we seeing that there is also X inside? And what about this X? They play both. So we must remove these ones who play both so that we remain with this part of people who play soccer only, this one. This part that I'm indicating here. It is for soccer. Only soccer. This one in red, this one, it is for every, this one, the first one here. It's just soccer. When you're given just soccer, you represent that. But soccer only, it means we must remove this X because this X is for both. Same with the hockey. In this case, this part here is for hockey. But there's also X here, which is included. So what about this section that is remaining here? What does it represent here? This is for hockey only. These ones, they do not play soccer. They play hockey only. These ones in between, these ones, are the ones that are sharing. These ones, X, this one. So these only sections, we must remove the X to obtain these only sections. Out of what we had, out of the 86 who play soccer, remember there were 86 here. We must remove those who play both. So it will be 86 minus X. Those who play hockey, there were 64. Out of the 64, we must remove X who are found playing both. We must remove them. And the 63, they play neither of the two. Neither, meaning to say not any of these two. They are not playing soccer. They are not playing hockey. Neither. They are not. So where are they? If they do not play any of these, they are outside of this soccer and hockey set, meaning to say they're outside. These are the 63 that we are going to have outside. None. They can say 63 play none of the two. That is neither of the two. None. They do not play soccer and hockey. All right. So that was your Venn diagram on question 2.41. Let's move on. 2.42. Calculate how many students play both soccer and hockey. Both, meaning to say X. Remember they said, let those ones who play both be X. So the question is calculate X. Remember, there are 205 grade 10 students. So in this case, we can form an equation from that to find X. To find both, you simply find X. So where can we find X? If everything that you are seeing on the diagram, everything, including the 63, is equal to 205, you can form an equation to say the 86 minus X plus this x plus this 64 minus x plus the 63 outside here. Everything is supposed to give us the total of what is given. That is out of the 205 grade 10. The set now, the sample space is for all grade 10 learners, 205. So everything, including those who do not play the sport, they are grade 10 learners, these ones. So they are supposed to be involved in this equation to find x. All right, so let us quickly take our like terms, the numbers on their own. We've got 86 here, add to 64, add to 63. So working with the numbers, that was going to give us 213. Then in terms of x, this is minus x plus x. So this actually cancels. You remain with the minus x there. So that's minus x, which is equal to 205. So to find x is either I'm going to take it that side, or I can simply take the 213 this side. It was a positive here. So it's going to be a negative 213. So we are going to remain with minus x, which is equal to 205 minus 218. That's minus 8. So what is the value of x? That's divide by -1. You obtain the value of x to be 8. So therefore, 8, they play both. 8 play both soccer, as we are given soccer and what? Soccer and hockey. That's just like that. It's 8 who play both, which is at the intersection. So if these 8 play both, also interpret your diagram. What does it mean? What does it mean? It means here, we've got 8 here. Here. There is 8 that we are given. So means that if this was 86 minus x, it is now going to be 86 minus 8. 64 minus x, it is going to be 64 minus 8. We got the value of x. All right, so that is, I'm just saying, be able to interpret it like that way. So the question was, determine the probability now that a learner chosen at random plays hockey only. You see now the idea of the interpretation. So where is the hockey only? Those are the ones that I was explaining, guys, before, if you still remember, when I was indicating these sets of 64 minus x and this one of 86 minus x for soccer only. And this one is for the hockey only. So in this case, we are focusing with the part of what? 64 minus x, this one. This is for hockey only. So that means in that case, 2.43, the probability of playing H only is what? 64 minus x. Remember, x is 8. So that's 64 minus 8, which was going to give us 56. So that's we've got 56 in this case here. So it's going to be 56 over the total probability over the total, which is 205. You can have it as a decimal. You can have it as a percentage. Guys, you can write this in a way that you want. From there, you can divide, write it as a decimal, write it as a percentage. That one is up to you. All right. Given on 2.5, that's a statement to be taken. Given that A and B are mutually exclusive events, which we talked about previously, that on mutually exclusive events, we are just considering two sets A and B that cannot be joined. So it means there is no intersection of A and B. So the question is that determine the probability of B complement, given that the probability of B is 0.4. What is B? B complement means what is not in B. What is not in B. This part that I'm shading here. That is our B complement. What is not in B. It is not found in B. So if it is not found in B, guys, we simply subtract from 1. Remember, the probability of everything in a sample space is supposed to give us a 1. So meaning to say the probability of what is not in B, which is B complement, it is simply going to be 1 minus the probability of what is in B. You remove what is in B, this one. You remove B. B is not part of our probability this time, so you remove it. 0.4. You remain with the probability of what is not B. This shaded part that I'm indicating here, that I indicated the shaded part, is of the B complement. That is what is not in B. That part is not in B, which is going to be 0.6. So this was a straightforward question where we needed to understand the basics of the two sets, the probability of a set and its complement, the probability of what is in A plus that of what is not in A is equal to 1. So we can have the probability of A from 1 minus this one of what is not in A. We can have that which is not in A from 1 minus. The same thing if it is referred to B, the probability of what is in B plus the probability of what is not in B must give you a 1. So if you understand the basic of a set and its complement, a set and its complement, that they do add up to 1, you can make whatever that you want. If you want the probability of what is not in B, you simply have to take this one to the other side. If you want to find the probability of what is in B given what is not in B, you are simply going to take it to the other hand. So meaning to say it will be 1 minus the probability of what is not in B, not found in B. So this is the probability of what is found in B, given what is not in B. So meaning to say from this 0.6, we can find this one, what is in B, using the same formula. Just have to change, make whatever that you want the subject, but do understand this pertaining a set and its complement, a set and its complement, a set and its complement. That is their relationship. All right. So meaning to say you can answer any question as long it's a set referred to its complement. Whether there are two sets there, you focus on that condition that it's A that I'm on. I'm focusing with the complement of what is the complement of B. So what about this A that we are given? Don't worry about that. We are focusing with what is of B. What is of B? If it is not in B here, if it is not in B, it is found where? Outside of the set, meaning to say it is also part, this 0.6 that we are seeing here, the 0.6. Some of these elements, they are also there in A. Because if it is not in B, it means it is also in A. It is also there outside of this set. Remember that. Where you write the probability of B complement being equal to the probability of A, do not confuse that question when you write it like this. This one, it is where there are exhaustive sets. Remember the exhaustive concept. Remember the exhaustive concept. You must not confuse between the exhaustive sets, because for the exhaustive, they state that the probability of A or B is supposed to be equal to what? 1. A or B is supposed to be, meaning to say the two sets, these two sets, they are the ones that are giving us a 1. So meaning to say if it is not in A, it is going to be in what? It is going to be in B. If it is not in B, it is going to be in A. That's for the exhaustive now. Do not confuse. You might have had a question like that. Maybe you are in class, you are doing your revisions. They answer a question in that manner. You must check what was the information. This one cannot be related. This one, you relate B on its own, B to its complement, A to its complement, just like that. All right. So like I said, let's revise, guys, as much questions. You just need to go through as much questions as you can. So moving on to question number 3, we are given the coordinates of triangle ABDR. So these are the coordinates that we are given, ABDA minus 5, 4, B, 3, 5, and D below. That is E as the midpoint of BD. Then we are given this E as the midpoint of what? Of the line BD. So that is the information that we are given. And out of this information, the first question, it was 3.1 to calculate the length of BD and leave your answer in said form. It is not just to calculate, but the answer is supposed to be given in said form. So the length of BD, we have got our line BD, guys, here. So remember, just gonna call this X1, Y1, and this X2, Y2. All right. So that is, we can calculate the length of BD in that case. So the length of BD can be calculated. Remember, our distance formula, from our distance formula, it's going to be X2 minus X1 squared plus, that will be Y2 minus Y1 squared from your distance formula. So that means BD can be calculated. X2, that is minus 1, X1, which is 3. So it's minus 1, which is X2, minus X1, or X1 is 3. So that will be squared, plus Y2, which is minus 3, minus Y1, which is 5. And that is squared. Okay, so that was going to give us the length of BD. The first part there was going to give us 16, and this was going to give us 64 under the square root. And if you add, that is going to be the square root of 80, which is simply 4 square root of 5 in the simplest form. Remember, they said in said form, so you are not going to write this as a decimal. You leave your answer like this. All right, so this is the length. Just going to write units. All right, so we have got the length of BD. Then on 3.2, it was to determine the coordinates of E, the midpoint of BD. So BD, there we have got E. So remember that the midpoint can be calculated E by adding the X values together, then divide by 2. Adding the Y values together, then divide by 2. That's Y1 plus Y2 divided by 2. So that's our midpoint. X1, which is 3, plus our X2, which is minus 1, divided by 2. You do the same for the Y values. That is Y1, which is 5, plus Y2, which is minus 3. Whatever that you obtain, you divide by 2. So this is going to give us the midpoint E. 3 plus minus 1, guys, that's 2 over 2, which is 1. 5 minus 3, that is 2 over 2, which is 1. You can just use your calculator there. So that is our point E in that case. All right, so the point E can be calculated from the midpoint concept. You just have to apply the midpoint concept in that case. All right, let's move on to another question. All right, there we calculated the length of BD. In case that we might need this one, let's just write it here. BD, we got 4 square root of 5 units. Okay, let's move on to another one. Show that AE is perpendicular to BD. Two lines are to be perpendicular if they meet at 90 degrees. That is what you refer to being perpendicular. They meet at 90. So A to E, like this, and BD, this line, BD, they meet at 90 degrees, that is being perpendicular. So how do we show using our mathematical calculations that two lines are perpendicular? We can use the gradient concept. Remember, if two lines are perpendicular, the gradient of the first line times the gradient of the second line should give us a -1. So we can use the gradient concept. We can use the gradient concept in that case. Okay, so let's calculate using the gradient concept. Let's calculate the gradient of BD. Remember, you want to prove AE and BD. So BD, we can calculate its gradient. Remember the gradient, the change in Y over the change in X, Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. Meaning to say we are given Y2, that's -3, minus Y1, which is 5 over X2, which is -1 minus X1, which is 3 in that case. So that was going to give us -8 over -4, which is going to give us a 2. So this is the gradient of BD. BD, guys, not BC, but BD, from B to D. So we have got the gradient of BD, which is 2. With the gradient of BD, let's determine that of AE. Remember, we have got A to E, so we're just going to have our coordinates AE, just going to call this X1, Y1, X2, Y2. So using the same formula, this time AE is going to be given as what? Y2 minus Y1. So Y2, that's a 1, minus Y1, which is a 4, over X2, which is a 1, minus X1, which is -5. So it's going to be like this. So that'll be -3 over 6, which is -1/2. Now we have to test if these two multiplied together will give us a -1. So the product of BD and this AE that we got, okay, the product of AE in terms of the gradient to that of BD is going to give us what? So AE, we got -1 over 2. What about BD? We obtained a 2. So the product of these two is giving us -1. This cannot happen mathematically, that two gradients multiply together, they will give you a -1. If lines are not perpendicular, it cannot happen. It's only if they are perpendicular. So therefore, by just having this, we are concluding that therefore AE is perpendicular to BD. It cannot just happen mathematically that the product of the two gradients will give you a -1. That can never just happen. It means those lines are perpendicular. All right. If they are parallel, they have same gradient. So 3.4, determine the equation of the line parallel to BD. So this line that is parallel to BD, it means its gradient must be equal to the gradient of what? Of BD. Parallel lines, the gradient of the first line is equal to the gradient of the second line. It is and passing through A. So this is passing through A. All right, so the first thing, what is the gradient of BD? Because we calculated this, the gradient of BD, if you still remember here, BD is 2. So that is 2. And this is passing through the point A, where we are given our point A from our diagram. A is -5, 4. That is our point A, -5, 4. So we can determine equation with the gradient and the point. It is enough for us to determine the equation. That's 3 marks for that. All right, so 3.4, we can have our equation of the line. Remember, the equation of the line is given in the form of y is equal to mx plus c, where m is the gradient. And in that case, we have got the gradient of the line because we are told that it's parallel to BD. So we take the gradient of BD because two lines are said to be parallel if they have the same gradient. So y is equal to 2x plus c. So you must find c. From where? From the point. So you're going to find this from the given point. So what is the given point? It is x, y in that case, which is the point A, where y is 4. So you just have to substitute in place of y, that's a 4, is equal to 2 times x, which is negative 5. So our x there is, sorry, that's a negative 5 in this case plus c. So thus we can determine the value of c. 2 times negative 5, that is negative 10. Take it to the other end, it's going to be a positive. If we take it this side, that's 4 plus 10 is equal to c, which is 14. So if c is equal to 14, therefore our equation is going to be y is equal to 2x plus c, which is 14. So that's 2x plus 14. So there we have got the equation of the line from the gradient and the point that you're given. It's enough for you to have what? The equation. 3.5, calculate the area of triangle ABD. Okay, what is it about this triangle ABD? If you are to consider, remember we proved that AE is perpendicular to BD from this gradient concept that we were using. So we have already proved that this triangle is a right-angled triangle because of AE being perpendicular to BD, where BD is the base of the triangle and AE is the perpendicular height. Because it is at what? At 90 degrees. So it becomes the perpendicular height. So in this case, we can calculate our area because we do understand that when given a base and a perpendicular height, the area can be calculated as half of the base times the perpendicular height, which is the base BD, the whole of the line BD. So it's going to be half of BD times the perpendicular height, which is AE. So you must multiply to the perpendicular height AE. So BD is our base, and this is our perpendicular height. So the question, are we having the length of BD? Yes, we calculated this one. If you still remember, we have got the length of BD, but we do not have the length of AE. So you're forced now to first calculate the length of AE. Remember from our distance formula we used it in our previous was x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So you can substitute this to calculate now the distance from point A to point E, the height, because you do not have. So x2 minus x1, or x2, remember at E, that's 1, minus x1, which is minus 5. So it's 1 minus minus 5 squared. So a minus and a minus will give you a plus. So it's simply 1 plus 5 squared. Okay, we move on, plus the y2 at E, that's 1 minus y2 at A, which is y1 at A, which is 4. So that will be 1 minus 4 squared. Okay, so that's it, guys. With your calculator, you can simplify and determine the length of AE, which was going to give us 3 square root of 5. So we have got AE, the perpendicular height, this one. So with this, we can calculate our area, half of the base BD. Remember our BD, we got 4 square root of 5 from the first question here that we calculated BD in set form on the first question. So you have that answer. So that's 4 square root of 5 times AE, which is the one in simplest form. Our AE is 3 square root of 5. Remember, we got this. So this is going to give us the area in that case, just use your calculator to multiply everything. That was going to give us 30 square units or units squared. Just like that. So we've got the area of the triangle from the given base and perpendicular height. Half base times what? The perpendicular height. So you needed to calculate AE first. Then you can use that to determine whatever that is following. All right. So that is what you can simply use to attempt this question. Then 3.6, you are given to determine the coordinates. Take note, the coordinates of the point C, such that the quadrilateral ABCD is a rhombus. So you need the coordinates of C if ABCD is a rhombus. Take note, ABCD. So it is supposed to be like this from point A to B to C. Maybe C is somewhere there, then back to D like this. They are saying this is a rhombus where there is a point C that we do not know here, and we're just going to call it XY. So if you form a rhombus, truly that this is a rhombus that we have formed. Guys, what are the properties of a rhombus? Remember, yes, we know that the opposite sides are parallel, this and that, opposite sides are parallel, and all the sides are equal. Yes, we do understand that all the sides are equal. Is it going to help us to find this? It's going to be something else, a lot of things to consider. There is something that you must understand on a rhombus about the diagonals. They do bisect each other. So if diagonals bisect each other, it means that's a common midpoint. That's a common point as a midpoint of this diagonal and this midpoint of the other, because they do bisect each other. So in this case, if we were to check properly, we were going to see that E is the midpoint of what? Of BD. And what does BD represent now if this is a complete shape? BD is a diagonal, this one, BD, it's a diagonal. E is the midpoint, which means that's the common center. So meaning to say from A to E, we are passing through the midpoint. Going to where? Going to C. We must pass through the same midpoint, which is the common midpoint. So guys, if E is the common midpoint, we can calculate this part that we want, guys, which is what? Which is C. Because E is the common midpoint. E is the common point, which is the common midpoint actually. So it's a midpoint of what? Thus, E is also the midpoint, of line AC. So if it is the midpoint of line AC, guys, how were you calculating the midpoint? Let's go back to the way we were calculating the midpoint. We were adding the X and Y, the X values together divided by 2. This X value, you add it to this X value, because C, we just know that there's X there. So if you were to add the X there, X1, which is 5, plus X2, this one will be our X2, which is just X, over 2. You do the same thing for the Y value, Y1 plus Y2 over 2, Y1, which is 4, plus Y2, which is this Y that you are given, over 2. This is how you're calculating the midpoint. You were taking the X values divided by 2. Y values divided by 2. If you do this, you must get this midpoint, just like what we did here, guys. The 3 and minus 1 divided by 2, the 5 and minus 3 divided by 2. It gave us E, the midpoint. So it means even if you do it using A and C, you must get the same point E. Since we said E is the what? Is the common midpoint. So this must be equal to E. And what is the coordinate there at E? Remember our E, guys, is what? 1, 1. So if E is given as 1, 1, and these two, they are equal, guys, this, it represents the point E in terms of X and Y. Here it's point E with the numerical value. So what does it mean? It means this part of X, as I remember, a point is made up of X and Y. Okay, sorry for that. All right, very sorry for that. So these softwares, guys, you know, they just do these things. So anyways, I was saying this part, you must take it to the one that we are given. That is simply the part of X. Like this is X, this is Y here, this is your X, this is your Y. So the part of X must be equated to X. The part of Y, you equate it to Y because we are saying they are equal. So this here is equal to this. That's what I'm trying to say. So you form an equation. -5 plus X over 2 is equal to 1. You solve for X. You do the same thing for Y. This part of Y to this part of Y. So it means 4 plus Y over 2 must be equal to 1. You have formed an equation. Therefore, solve for Y. By solving for Y and X, you are finding the point C because C is made up of what? X and Y. So let's solve for X. This is over 1. So you can cross multiply 1 times this. That's -5 plus X is equal to 2 times 1, which is 2. So we can take the 5 to the other side. It is a minus here. So if we take it to this side, it will be a plus. So X is equal to 2 plus 5, which is 7. So X there was going to be a 7. You do the same thing to find the value of Y. In this case, cross multiply also. That's 4 plus Y is equal to 2 times 1, which is 2. Then we're going to take the 4 this side. It becomes a negative. So that will be -4 here. So Y is equal to 2 minus 4, which is -2. So there we have got the value of Y and the value of X at the point given as C, which is this point C. So therefore, our point C, the X value is 7, the Y value is -2. You can find it that way using the midpoint concept. So guys, just to see that it just cost a lot of things. Or you can even use the movement there this way. Okay, so there we are done. Let's see another way. Let's just hope this software is just going to allow us to finish, guys. You can also use this concept of a rhombus. We do understand that as this -5 is moving, it is moving in a straight line to whatever point. There's a distance that is going to move up to a condition where it will reach to a corresponding value. You just take it like this, straight up to a corresponding value where it will correspond to X being 3. It moved from -5 to 3. How many units have we taken from -5 up to 3? From -5, guys, up to 3. It means the difference, 3 minus 5. So this is for X. So it's 3 minus 5. The difference, like if you move from -5, guys, up to 3, how many units are you going to move? You're going to move 5 units up to here, then 3 units there. Do not mind the diagram the way that is, because here they draw something else, these diagrams. So there's 3 minus -5, which is 8 units. Horizontally, you are supposed also to move 8 units horizontally up to a corresponding point which corresponds direct to C. You must move 8 units horizontally. So you just add, guys, like what happened here. -5 plus 8, you get the 3. So if you do the same thing on the X value that we want, like here, we are supposed to obtain the same now for at C. So at C, the X value is going to be taken as, we take the X value here, which is -1. How many units are we supposed to move horizontally to get to the other point? You're supposed to move 8 units. So you add 8 units. That was going to give us a 7. So meaning to say at C, X is equal to 7. Okay, let's go to the Y values. In terms of the Y values, you interpret according to your diagram, according to the properties of the shape, guys. So for the Y values, if you check, we have got Y1 there, which we have got this Y, which is 4, and the Y there is -3. So it means we have to go vertically down from 4, going vertically down. Vertically down. How many units to get to -3? How many units going vertically down? That is the case. So in this case, we are going to notice that in terms of the Y, it is the difference 4 minus -3, or -3 minus, which is there's a -7 since we are going down. Or just know there's a difference. Guys, here there is 4 units and there's 3 units going down. So the difference there is 7 units, or you can write it as a -7. So it is the same thing that you ask yourself that from this B, because B is supposed to be reflected to C, from B going to C, going down like this, from if in a vertical manner, how many units were we going to go? We are going to simply go the same units, 7 units going down. We're supposed to go 7 units down. 7 units down. So if a 0.5 is to move 7 units down, it means Y is going to be 5 minus 7, because it's 7 units going down. It's a negative. So 5 minus 7, that's -2. So the Y value is -2 there. So therefore, our point C given by X followed by Y is the X value 7 and the Y value -2. Guys, I don't know if you understand this, but if you understand it, you can use it. These are the properties of the shapes now, where the properties of the shapes have to play a role. Or you can just use that midpoint concept, which can be the easier way. You just know that, all right, the midpoint is the same, so it's a common midpoint. 4.1, the data below represents the daily rainfall in millimeters during the month of September in KwaZulu-Natal. So we are given the rainfall from 0 to 20 and this and that, the frequency, the midpoint times the frequency. So in this case, you are being asked to determine the missing values in the table. So this is for the frequency, the midpoint times frequency. Guys, if you multiply this and this, you must get this 20. If you multiply these two, you must get a 20. Like A times 10 is supposed to give us a 20. So what is A? Simply divide by 10, guys. That's the idea there. So that's a 2. Because this is midpoint times frequency. So this midpoint here times this frequency must give us a 20. The same thing that we are having here, if you take these two, multiply them, you must get what? 250. Because it's midpoint and frequency. And this is what we have here. So if you multiply B and 5, which is 5 times B, you must get 250. So to find B, simply divide by what? Simply divide by 5. So it means you can have the value of B in this case, which was going to be 50. So B was going to be 50. To find C, you can also do the same thing. The product of these two, the frequency and the midpoint, must give us this, because this is midpoint times frequency. So it's simply 3 times 110. So the product of 3 and 110, that is 330. That was our point C. So after that, we are asked in this case to use the table above to calculate the estimated mean rainfall. So remember, the mean can be calculated. This is grouped data from 0 to this, from there. where you calculate the mean. How do you calculate the mean under the grouped data? Remember that mean, in short, can be written like this, or let me just write in words, guys. Mean is equal to, you're supposed to have the sum of the product here, the sum, this one is summation, the sum of frequency to the midpoint over the sum, which is the total of the frequency. So this is simply total sum of frequency times midpoint. So this is frequency, and this represents midpoint. So it's simply the sum of frequency times midpoint, frequency times. You have to add frequency times midpoint, plus you move on, frequency times you add them over the total frequency together. That is what it means. You multiply frequency and the midpoint. So already, if you check, they already multiplied this midpoint of here. They already multiplied it for us. So you're not going to start now to say 2 times 10. You move on, plus 4 times the, no, already they multiplied these for us, frequency and midpoints. But we need the sum. Sorry for that. We need the sum, the total. So you have to add these together. So you're going to add this 20 plus this plus this. You add everything. So you add the sum of what? Midpoint times what? Times frequency. Times frequency over the total frequency. Okay, so for the sake of time, we want you to add everything that you are seeing here. 20 plus 120 plus 250 plus 450 plus 720 plus 330 plus this 260. You are going to obtain 2,120 divided to the total frequency. The total frequency is what you are given. You are not told like about the frequency. So you add now this one, but it's the month of what? It's the month of September. How many days do we have? 30 days. So these are the days that are being given here as the frequency. So add 2 plus 4 plus this plus this plus this. It is supposed to give you a 30. All right. So that was going to give us a 30 as our total frequency. And thus you can round off. You are not given the instruction. So you can round off to 2 decimal places as we were given before from the question paper instruction. So it's going to be 70.67 in millimeters. Remember, this is the mean rainfall in millimeters, the units that you're given there. So you can simply take it from there. Already they have this for us. Then from there, you're asked to represent the data on a histogram. So in this case, unfortunately, we are not having that part of the diagram of the as part of our addendum in that case. But I'm just gonna show you how it was supposed to look like. Remember your histogram, if the classes are not affected like this, 22, you can see there's a difference of 20 throughout. You simply use that class versus the frequency that you are given. Just the class versus what? The frequency. Class versus frequency, class versus frequency. All right. Because these classes are the same. So this is the part that you're only going to need. So like I said, guys, here, because I do not have the graph, I'm just gonna simply show you something, just a little bit that you can use. All right, let me just obtain an L like this. Okay, this is too much, guys. Sorry for that. So let's just say we have got our plan. In this case, we have got our X and Y. So this is 4.13. So definitely you will be given a scale to use where they are indicating what you are given for X in terms of the rainfall. Remember, this is your rainfall. In terms of X, you are having the rainfall. So these are the classes that you use from 0, 20, this 0, 20, and so on and so on. So you're going to have that 0, 20, 40 up to 140 and so on. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 114, and so on. Then for the frequency, you're going to be having also a scale given there, 2, 4, 6, 1, 2, 3, the one that you'll be given. So in this case, was going to be 2, 4, 6, 8. All right, that was 2, 4, 6, 8. All right, the maximum there that we have is what? It's 8. So it can just have up to 10. Okay, that is for the frequency. So you've got your frequency. So like I said, I'm just going to show you a sketch of what you are supposed to have in an accurate diagram. So you are going to take your rainfall, the first one, the first class we are having from 0 to 20 versus 2. So 0 to 20 is versus 2 here. So it must be straight at 2 and back to 20 with a bar like that using a ruler. You're supposed to use a ruler there, but I'm just going to show you a sketch, guys. You do the same thing from 20 to 40 versus 4. 20 to 40 versus 4. That is versus 4 up to 40. Okay, so this must correspond to what? To 4, straight at 4. Okay, you do the same thing at 5, which is 40 to 60. 40 to 60 versus 5. So 5, it will be in between 4 and what? 4 and 6. That is where we can have our 5. So there, we're going to have at 5 there from 42 to 60, straight like that. Okay, that is the one for this one. You move on. 60 to 80 versus 6. 60 to 80 versus 6. You do the same thing. 80 to 100 versus 8 and so on. So 8 there. 80 to 100 versus 8. So it is supposed to be corresponding at 8 and back to 100. So you're going to do like that up to the last one. 100 to 120 versus 3. From 100 to 100, it must be versus 3. 3 is in between 2 and what? 2 and 4. That is where 3 is. So it can be just somewhere there from 100 to 120. Then from 120 to 140, it's a 2. Which is the first one. The 2 is supposed to be in within that line there, but it's supposed to be from 120 to 140, supposed to correspond straight to the 2 there. So that is what you're going to have. These bars are of the same width from this point to this point, is same as from this point to this point, from this point to this point. So there you simply use the frequency as it is. Do not worry. All right, so that was your question there. In which class interval of these, the class interval that we are given, in which class interval will the following be found? The median. In which class interval? In which, like, from these intervals that we are given here, in which class are we going to have our median? Remember, this was our A, which is 2. So remember that median, it's half of the distribution. So this is 4.14A. All right, so this is what you simply do for this one. 4.14A. Remember that median, it's from half of the distribution. So you're going to calculate half of n plus 1. The distribution, which is half of n plus 1. N, the total of the frequency. Remember, when you added this total frequency, you got 30 there. So it is going to be half of 30 plus 1. Half of 30 plus 1 is the position of our median. Not to say that is this is the median position. Let me write it this way. Median position. So this was going to give us 15.5. That's the 15.5th position. It's a position, this one. Not to say that's our median. The median now, the way are we going to get the median is from this position that we have. That is where we are now going to talk about the interval where the median is found. Where is it found? We have to count up to this position, 15,5. So we count until we get this number. Where does it lie? Where is it going to be found? Okay, let's add 2 plus 4, that is 6. Okay, 6 plus 5, that is 11. We are still less than 15. We are at 11 right now. 11 plus 6. 11 plus 6, that is going to be 17. As we can see at this stage, in this point here, when we add 2 plus this, you are now at 17. Meaning to say the 15,5 is found in, guys, this is an interval. It's not a point where you say the median is 2 or the median. No. You cannot say the median is 2. It's not, it's an interval that we are talking from here to, we are talking about within this interval. That is where the 15,5 is going to be found. It is going to be found in within. We counted, guys, 2 plus 4, which is 6, plus 5, which is 11. We are not yet at 15. We are still less than. But the moment we add 16, it's now, the moment we add this 6, it's now 17. We are more than this, meaning to say this 15,5 is here. It's found in here. Since it is a median position, it means even if I calculate it from this side, I'm supposed to end up in the same position because median is the middle part. Okay, let's add 2 plus 3, which is 5. We are still not yet there. We are at 5. Then we move on. 5 plus 8, which is going to give us 13. Here we are at 13. By adding these numbers, we are at 13. Still less than 15. Let's add the 6. The moment we add a 6 to 13, we are obtaining 19. Guys, 15,5 is within this 19. So it is still in the same position. So we are going to obtain our median value in the 60 to 80 interval. So you write as it is there, from 60 to 80, as it is written there. All right. What about B? The 75%, the 75th percentile. That is the 75th percentile from the 75 percentage. It's a percentage, this one. So what is going to be that 75th percentile? It is just like how you calculated the median. We also need the position of that one. Instead, now, it is not going to be half of, but that position is given from the 75% percentile. It's a percentage. So it's 75 over 100 of what? N plus 1. So that's 75 over 100 of total, which is 30. So that's 30 plus 1. You have the position there. So it was going to be 23.25, something like that. This is the position where we are going to have our 75th percentile. So we have to calculate until we get 23 point something. So let's calculate 2. Remember, guys, there we're at 60. Okay, let's just recount 2 plus 4. Said 6 plus 5, which is 11. 11 plus 6, we got a 17. We are still less than 23. But the moment we add the 8 that we are given there, 23, that 17 plus 8 is going to give us what? 25. Here we are at 25, meaning to say we are more than 23. So we can find this 23,25 in within this interval, that it is where it is going to lie, in the interval of 80 to 100. So that one is for 80 to 100. The mode, where are we going to obtain the mode? In which interval? The mode is not going to change. Is the modal class, is the class with the highest frequency. of all these frequencies, which one? Yes. Which part are we having the highest frequency? The highest frequency is at 8. So which class is consisting of this 8? The class is the one that we want, 80 to 100. So that is the class of 80 to 100 again. So this one is a repetition. Same answer there. All right, number 3, 4.2. The box and whisker plot below shows the test results of grade 10 in percentages. So given these are in percentages, like this is 25%, 31%, 64%. These are like percentages obtained by grade 10 learners. Use the box and whisker plot above to determine 4.21, the lowest and the highest marks obtained by students in the test. Remember, on your box and whisker plot, it shows a 5-number summary of the minimum value, the lower quartile, the median value, the upper quartile, and the maximum value. So the question was, what is the lowest and highest? Guys, we can see that we have it. Lowest mark is the minimum, 25. But they told us these are in percentages. So the lowest mark is 25%. And what about the highest mark? The highest mark is the maximum value, which is 95%. Okay, that's a good pass rate, 95% to some. We have someone with 95%. That is good. So meaning to say, that was a direct question, that one. 4.22, what percentage of class achieved above 31%? Above 31%. What percentage are we talking about? Okay. If we check above 31%, who achieved the 31%? 31% it's here, guys. This is 31%. And what does this represent? Q1 is the lower quartile. Remember, Q1, it represents the lower quartile, a quarter of the distribution. A quarter, guys, of the distribution, if you put it as a percentage, it simply represents 25% of the distribution. So these people here at Q1, this is where we have 31 here. This is where we have 31%. According to the percentage of this understanding of our quartiles, it is representing 25% of the people at Q1. But they are saying who achieved above this mark. Now we are talking about these ones going up. If at this point they represent 25% of the people, what about those ones above? They will be represented with the remaining now out of the 25%. So it's 100 minus 25, which is 75%. So those ones who have above 31%, it means those ones above Q1, above 25%, just like that. Okay? Let's move on to another part, which is the median mark. What is the median? Remember, we said the median is already given, guys. That's Q2 there. So the median, that's 64%. What percentage of class achieved between 64 and 80? 64 and 80. All right. This is where we have 64 and 80, guys. What does this remaining part represent? From the median to Q. This is our Q3. So this is 25% of the, remember this is at median. So this is 25%. Those quartiles, guys, Q1, Q2, Q3, they are separated by 25% from each. 25% plus 25, we are at 50%, plus 25, 75%. So in between, this is what you're supposed to know, in between Q2 and Q3, this is what they're asking you, because this represents Q2. This represents Q3, upper quartile. The upper quartile, we are at 75% here. Sorry, at Q3. We are at 75% here at upper quartile. Here, we are at 75%. At Q2, read, this is the median. Median means we are at 50%. So if they ask you in terms of what percentage, you answer it in terms of percentage. So what percentage is in between? That's the difference, 75 minus 50. So there's a difference of 25%. From each quartile, that's why this one, I just took the answer to say this one is 25%. It's a quarter. Each quartile, from each quartile, there's a difference of 25%. So here we are at 25%. So the remaining will be 100 minus 25, which is 75, the one that we got there when we answered that question 4.22. But this one, we want in within to say between Q2 and Q3, how many percent we have? So that's 25%, the difference. All right. The interquartile range. How can we obtain the interquartile range from our diagram here? From this diagram, remember, the interquartile range is the difference between Q3, upper quartile, and the lower quartile, Q1. Q3, we already have it. So Q3 is 80 and Q1 is 31. So the difference between 80 and 31, that is our interquartile range. And that was going to be 49. Remember, these are given as percentages. So you can even write it as 49% in terms of the marks, not in terms of the percentage of a range or what. No, this is just in terms of the given information that we have. So that was it. 18 marks, question number 4. Question number 5, we are given 2 buildings 45 meters apart, length ED. So, okay, sorry for that. The length ED that we are given here is showing the difference between 2 buildings apart, this one, the ED, which is 45 meters. And from this, we are given that a person on the top of the shorter building, which is this one on the top here at A, calculates the angle of elevation at B from A to be 30 degrees, meaning to say you are watching the top of B from A. You're going to raise your eyes up. You're going to just raise them up by 30 degrees. So that's the angle of elevation. And this one going down will be the angle of what? Depression, which is the 50 degrees that is remaining. Remember, these are 2 straight lines, the horizontal views. They are considered to be parallel since they have equal distance in between these lines. There is equal distance. They are parallel horizontal lines. So if they are parallel, it means if this angle here is 50 degrees, the angle at D will be 50 degrees from alternate angles, the ones which create a Z. Remember, these are the properties of your parallel lines. AE is a vertical pole and ED being horizontal, meaning to say these two, they meet at 90 degrees, just like these two, they meet also at 90 degrees. So using these properties, you can answer whatever question that you want. Let's see the first question. Determine the size of ADE. ADE. All right, we have already answered this one from A to D to E. The angle created is created at D. And that is what? 50 degrees. So ADE, we already have this one. Calculate the length of BD, the height of the taller building. 5 marks. The height of the taller building, BD, the whole of this BD, this one, the whole of this. How can we calculate the height of it? If you are to take a closer look, ED, this one, is the same as AC from A to C. It is the same. So AC, it means it is also 45 meters. Are we seeing that BD is a combination of 2 lines? Okay, that's 5.2. Just gonna write it here. Are we seeing that BD is a combination of 2 lines from B to C and from C to D? By having this, we can add up to find our BD. Okay, take a closer look. In triangle ABC, it is a right angle triangle, this one. ABC is a right angle triangle. Right angle at what? At C. It's a right angle triangle, this one, which is right angle at C. Remember, there's a 90 here. So it means this other part is also 90 degrees. So applying our trigonometrical ratios, we can calculate the length of BC according to the angle of 30 degrees. BC is considered to be the opposite. So you have opposite. And what about AC? Because we are given AC being equal to ED, because these lines, they will be equal distance. So A to C is given, which is what? Our adjacent. So which ratio are we going to use? That here is called the opposite and adjacent at the same time from the SOHCAHTOA concept. That is the tan. All right, so let's calculate BC. So from the ratio of a tan, using our trigonometrical ratios, the tan of theta, the angle, is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. What is our opposite? That's the BC to be calculated over the adjacent, which is 45. So you can calculate BC from triangle ABC, this one, from this triangle ABC. Okay, let's finish up this one. So just going to cross multiply the same as over 1. So 1 times BC, that's BC is 45 times tan, which is 45 tan 30 degrees. So BC was going to be 45 times tan 30, which is 25.98 meters. So we have got the length of BC. We do the same thing from this remaining triangle ADC or ACD, this one. We are going to use it to calculate CD. So from triangle ACD, it's also a right angle triangle. You have to calculate CD. So according to this triangle, this time, we are no longer focusing on this 30 degrees that we use. We used it, the 30 degrees there. This time we are focusing with the 50 degrees inside of this triangle. So according to 50 degrees, this side CD to be calculated. Remember, this is our point C, guys. See, this is our point C. So from C to D, this side is what? The opposite. Because we've got our 90 degrees here. So this one is opposite. This one is the hypotenuse, but do not worry about AD because you're not asked about that. You have to worry about AC, and AC still remains as the adjacent. Opposite adjacent, guys, we saw it from tan. So here we're going to use the same ratio of a tan, but this time is tan of the angle 50 degrees is equal to the opposite over adjacent. So opposite, which is CD, over the adjacent. And what is our adjacent? 45. So you can calculate the CD over 1, just cross multiply just like the previous case. So CD is going to be the product of 45 to tan 50. So that's 45 tan 50 degrees. So this was going to give us the length of CD, which was going to be 53.63 meters. So from these trigonometrical ratios, we managed to calculate the length of BC and the length of CD. And we are saying these two combined gives us BD. So therefore, our BD from the sum of the two BC, which we got here, 25.98 plus CD. And what is our CD? 53.63. It was going to give us the length of the whole line of B to D, which is the height of the taller building. And that was going to give us 79.61 meters. All right, so these are your typical questions that you need to go through as you are revising for your September exams, the test, common test that you are having, the basics according to what you had in this term. Remember, you worked with your trigonometry, the two-dimensional, you worked with your statistics, you worked with the probability. So they are going to ask questions there. So make sure that you revise everything, know everything, and also the financial mathematics. Do not leave that part. Also, you're supposed to revise your financial mathematics, your probability, your trigonometry there, the part of 2D. Make sure that all the basics of your syllabus are done. I presented you guys the syllabus, so make sure that you go through the syllabus and understand what you are supposed to revise in this term. Till we meet again.